this is scary. If I don't get enough activity with my rook, like it's a nightmare scenario. Literally. All right, everyone. This is round 1 of the Pennsylvania Amateur Championship. I just had one of the craziest endgame grinds I've ever had. I'm in the hotel room. If you ever see any voices or hear anything, that's because there's other people in the room. They're just chilling, and they're also playing this event, and they're doing pretty good. Congratulations. and yeah, so I have the black pieces. The time control is game in 75 with a delay of 5 seconds, so kind of on the longer side of things. And my opponent started with e4. So this is a no engine recap until the very, very end. Also in this game, I sacrificed a couple pawns in the opening, which was pretty cool. But I got a little bit lucky, that's for sure. I respond with Karakan, good old trusty. I played a lot. And the opening was very, very standard. We traded a set of pawns in the center, and he moves his bishop out to 3. Very, very common, controlling this this diagonal. So I can now put my bishop on f5, and he chooses a setup after c3. He chooses a setup with h3 that stops me from developing my bishop at all. So sometimes people play bishop f4 instead. That's a more common move. And but the downside of that move is that I can still play bishop g4, develop my bishop outside of the pawn, and continue. But playing h3, he's preventing any of that. He's saying your bishop's going to be sad for the rest of his life, and I say no. My bishop's going to be happy. I played e5, so that's the main downside. Like, so there's 3 main moves: bishop f4, knight f3, and h3. Knight f3 and bishop f4, they both control the e5 square. So playing the move e5 isn't possible. But by playing h3, a flank pawn, now I can strike in the center. So it's very principled in that sense. When your opponent plays on the flank, you should play in the center. So it makes a lot of sense here. And after takes trade, I had in many games bishop b5 check in this position, and like a bishop trade here, and then sometimes black can even castle queenside. In some cases, you can play this very, very aggressively. I've had this against Austin. If you guys have watched my game recaps against him, this has happened before. But my opponent chooses something different. They decide to prioritize development and play knight f3 immediately, giving up the bishop. So giving up the bishop pair. And if you kind of take stock of the position, so black has this isolated queen's pawn, which can be a weakness in a lot of positions, a lot of endgames. Once you start trading pieces, this is just an isolano. This guy's lonely, and it can definitely be an issue. In this case, well, that's the downside. The upside is black has more space in the center, and I have the bishop pair. So black is totally fine here. This position is totally equal. And I'm just going to try to play actively. And I think I succeeded in that. So he plays, well, after I develop my bishop, he castles. And I do too. And some people in the past, they play like rook e1 here and bishop e3 and try to play positionally against the isolated queen's pawn, which is control the square in front of it and maintain long-term pressure against it. That's one plan. He goes for bishop g5 though, and I bait him kind of by playing the move h6. The reason why I say that is because after he takes my knight, this pawn is just free. Like, that's just the pawn. Like, it was a weakness, but now it's not because it doesn't exist anymore. I no longer have a weak isolated queen's pawn anymore. But what's the upside? What's the upside? Well, the upside is I got open lines of attack, and I'm threatening a discovered check on the queen. And he has to be very, very careful on where he moves his queen. Like, where do you move it? If you go queen b3, for example, bishop takes h3, and I'm threatening the knight on f3, capture, and your king. I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that these guys are not supporting the king at all. You're undeveloped, pal. You're kind of walking a thin line there. You gotta be careful. So he goes queen h5, which is the only move that defends the knight on f3 and gets out of the way of the rook. And that's when I throw in the other haymaker. I threw a left hook. I'm throwing a right hook. Bam, B5. B5 here, and another pawn sacrifice. And if he takes this, I have an ocean's choice. If he takes that pawn, I can go rook b8 and get in on a second rank. I can play bishop a6, and if he takes, discovered attack, horizontal edition. I can also just go, whoops, and after if he takes, I can also just take on h3. The world is on my fingertips. I have all the oysters, and so he cannot take that pawn, or he probably shouldn't. So he just plays a very principled move, which is knight. But now I have to figure out what to do. He did not take my second free pawn. Now I got to figure out what to do. And there are a couple of options, and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because the main advantage here is that I got the pointy piece has the horsies. So I have to. So if I lose a bishop pair, that's actually a huge part of my compensation is gone. So the fact that I have the bishop pair is very, very good. And I don't want to lose it. And he's threatening knight e4. So threatening in quotation marks. Threatening in quotation marks, knight e4, forcing a trade. I'm going to lose this dark square bishop, and I'm just going to be down 2 pawns. And if I lose the initiative, then I'm just down 2 pawns, and I'm a sad, or 1 pawn, I guess, at this point. I'm just down a pawn, and I need something to prove. So I play bishop b7, which stops knight e4. But now he says, hey, I'm going to play queen takes e5 now, and now your bishop's hanging. But he obviously didn't hear what I said 2 minutes ago, and I played bishop a6. I honestly am not sure if there were any other options here. I was trying to, I would love if he just didn't play knight e4 and allowed me to play a5. And just, and maybe expand on the queen side a bit more and just, not play this, please. Maybe I could have played a move like rook e8. I'm not convinced, though, because he just gets time. I don't want to give him any time here. And once he has time, that's bad news bears for me. So I really don't think I have that many options in this case, other than bishop b7. But I was trying to think of other things, but it was the only move that comes to mind. But after queen takes 5, this is where I'm actually not sure if bishop a6 is actually the best move. I suspect it is, and the position is just still around balanced, but it just there's just imbalances, because white has the 2 pawns and the rook, and the knight, and then while I'm up a rook. So I think it's still around equal, but I am curious to think about other options like rook a b8 here, setting up a discovered attack and trying to get the rook on second rank. I just wasn't sure. Although looking at it visually, this white has questions to answer. So where do you even put the queen? I guess queen a4 seems most natural. And I'm not anything great here. So I guess I'm happy I played the more forcing move. Yeah, I think I'm happy about the more forcing move. Well, I guess if queen a4, I still play because discovered attack. I'm attacking b2, and actually the queen doesn't have that many squares. Maybe queen 4 or queen 2. So, but here I'm still down 2 pawns, and I still don't really feel like I have anything concrete for it. So I like my move bishop a6, winning an exchange by force, and he takes back with the king. Oh well, he throws in this move first. He throws in knight e4, getting rid of the dark square bishop. I thought that was a good move. It is unclear who wants the trades during the game. Who wants the trades, me or him? I think he wants to get rid of the dark square bishop at the very. But I think I learned after the game, I think he actually wants the trade, because if you look at the pawn structure here, if we trade off all of the rooks and the queens, and I'm just left with a rook and he has a knight, but all of these pawns still exist, this 3-on-1 is nasty. This is scary. If I don't get enough activity with my rook, it's a nightmare scenario. Literally a night, So it's it's kind of scary. It can be kind of scary. So I think in hindsight, I think he wants the trades, but in this case, I can't stop him. So I play queen f4. I did consider in this position queen g6 because if he takes my bishop, it's checkmate. Not that. That's not checkmate, dude. Okay, whatever. I give up. You get the point. So I did think about that, but I thought like knight h4, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Because after like queen f6, well, I can't go there because of the knight. If I go like queen h5, then I still lose the bishop, and this knight is guarded by the queen on the other side of the board. I guess he takes. Maybe this is fine. I guess maybe the knight's on that. That's a. I don't know. I wasn't. But I did think about queen g6. I thought more simple was queen f4. The knight. So he cannot play knight takes d. And he took back with the king. And you know how the saying goes: PP on the PP, put pressure on the pin piece. and so I'm attacking the knight again, and so he has to defend. And I cannot get lazy here. If I get lazy, I die. If I play f5 here, being like, oh yay, I attacked the knight, I'm going to win, and then I lose a game because of knight f6 check, and after pawn takes, rook takes, and queen takes, and I'm sad. I'm a sad guy, and so I'm like, okay, king f8, slow down for a second. F5 can come on another day, but he can see the pieces and plays queen c6, so he avoids f5 entirely. He gets out of the pin, and he's like tickling my position. He's like, hey, I'm in here. Hey, I'm attacking this bishop. Like, how are you gonna defend everything? I'm like, okay, I centralize rook. I centralize my rook, defending everything, and he decides to trade everything off correctly. I think this is correct. I think he correctly evaluates it and takes on d6. I take his rook, back on d6, and he trades. And when I got here, I was like, dude, like at first I was like, oh man, this is good. And then like the king e2, and I was like, wait a second, how am I going to win this? I was like, how am I going to win this game? And somewhere in the next like 3 or 4 moves, he offers a draw, and then another 10 or 15 moves later, he offers another draw. I declined both times because, well, firstly, I think we should definitely, I think on the white side or the black side, I think I should play this position and like try to get better at endgames. And this one's a very interesting one. I truly do believe that the computer evaluation is probably around equal. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But I did definitely think about it when he offered the draw. I definitely did think about it, to be honest, because if there is like if I had this endgame against Austin, I'd probably lose 50%. So it's not easy, and especially when I get low on time, the horsey can do damage, massive amounts of damage. But anyways, it's the end game. He brings the king towards the center. I bring my king towards the center. He moves his knight up. I move my king towards the center and plays knight 4 check. And I thought about going king d5, but I didn't like how knight f5 was. It attacks my rook, or it attacks my pawn and my rook at the same time. If I defend my pawn, he has an el tenedor, the fork. so that's bad news bears. And I was like, man, this is annoying. This is annoying. So I play king e5 instead. And geometry was such a huge part in this game, and such a huge part in my ability to calculate. Because some things to think about is that if a king is 2 diagonal squares away from a knight, it's going to take that knight 4 moves to attack that king. If a king is at 1 diagonal square, it can attack the king immediately. So this is a check. This is a check. I'm not worried about this check because it's covered in this check. I can move diagonal squares away. And I want to be mentioning this a lot. I mentioned this because this was a huge part in how I decided what move to do. Was geometry. But it really is. Really is a huge part with how knights move. It's very, very important. And also when you are on when you are directly horizontal or vertical from a knight, 1 square away, like this, like knight, it will take the knight 2 moves. But then once you get, but it gets a bit complicated when they can throw in a pawn check at you and then force your king to move to a different square. Like it's kind of tough. Like I said, horses are tricky, especially when it's a delay 5, tournament when you might not have all the time to calculate in the world. Anyways, so I play king e5. He moves his king forward, and now I just play g. So okay. So his knight can never go to f5, and I'm going to slowly try to get my rook, because I realized later, I don't know when I realized this, but I was like, man, this rook on d6 sucks. It sucks. Like, it can't go here because of the knight. It can't go here because of the knight. I did think about multiple times tickling his pawns on the queen side, but I decided that did absolutely nothing. Like rook b6, nothing. Because of b3 and rook a6, a4, and I'm like, wow, I'm helping him. I'm making him do the moves that he wants to make already. And I was like, that's kind of dumb. So let's not do that. So that's why I played g6 instead. And he went f4. So that's the one other thing that he prepared by moving his king forward. That he's preparing f4 and can maybe expand a bit on the king side. Maybe start trading pawns. If we trade all the king side pawns, I lose. Or at the very least, I ain't winning. I'm never winning this game. If we trade all the king side pawns, it's game over for me. Like now I'm tortured. Now I'm in a torture dungeon for the rest of my life. If we trade off all the king side pawns, because now I have no hope. Like, how am I gonna win this game? I'm gonna win this game. The way I thought about this endgame was, I want to infiltrate and hopefully win a kingside pawn or two, and then hopefully force his knight to sacrifice itself for one of the pawns promoting, and then win with the rook. That's kind of like one of the universes out there that Doctor Strange saw, was that, that's how I win. That's the 1 in 100 million ways. That's the path to victory. So if we trade all those pawns, very, very bad. He plays f4, expand on the center. I go king d5, and I was expecting him to play b3. I thought that made sense. Maybe preparing c4 and maybe bringing his king over, help push his. But he actually goes a4, which also makes sense. Also expanding on the queen side. I think around here he offered me, which is a little bit telling, because he should be trying to think about how to win. But I guess he is playing some 500 points higher rated than 600, close to 600, 550. Maybe a bit scared to that degree. But now I play rook d7. Like I said, this rook sucks. It has no movement. Try to put it on the tile. This king has a lot of squares to guard. If he wants to keep my rook out, he has to keep king on like d2, try to control this open tile, and like play like b or this f4. Like, because I really want to get in with the rook. Another idea is, like, if I play like h5, for example, and if you play 4, then I could that open file to try to activate it. But yeah, it is a long range piece, and right now I can't really take advantage of the fact that it's a long. He plays 3. Not really sure. I guess it just kicked out. He keeps my king out. Like, for example, and I wanted to go king c4, but then b, take, and fork. Like, there's always these little tricks. It's so annoying. It's such an annoying endgame. Like, this was the most annoying endgame I've ever had, because there's so many little trickies, little tricks everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's like a trick. It's like Halloween. It's Halloween out here, but there's no treats. It's only tricks. So I play rook d7, and he plays b3, keeping my king out now, because now if he just goes is this thing, now I can actually get him, and he's not threatening a fork by playing b anymore. So I could potentially go in with my king, if he didn't play b3. But does that, and now I put my rook on the open file, which is very principled, loses king, and here I was very, very worried. One of the things I saw was after rook e1. So I got what I wanted. Awesome. I put my rook in his position. He's gonna wreak havoc. These kingside pawns, your king too far away. You can't, like, you're gonna lose these pals, but he's gonna die. So, but I did not like what I saw. There was c4, and I'm like, okay, well, just go 5, and he can't go knight e6 because that square is covered, and so he doesn't have any checks in this position against me. So this should be great, except for b4. And I was like, oh, because if I take fork, like, gosh darn, dude. And if I go back, like c5, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's getting his pawns rolling. He's mowing down the position. Like, I am helping him advance his pawns. So I was like, okay, so if I play rook e1 after c4, do I go king d6? I think this should be fine, but maybe 5 still. And like, I think it's still anyone's game. Or actually, no, in this position, this pawn on a6. So if after c4, if I go here, he has b4 expanding, and if I go d6, I hang the pawn on a7. So there, and oh my gosh, like, just look at this. Like, dude, bro, I'm lost. This game's over. This game is over. My rook was a sole hero, but like, he went out to the enemy's territory, and by the time he got there, the war's over. That's basically what this position is with all these passed pawns going down the board. Game's over. So that's why in this position I did not play rook e1. I played a6, preventing his knight from getting to a6, and so allowing king d6 safe. 6 cannot be checked by the knight. So yeah, actually, like, look at this. Anyways, so f5. Plays f5, trying to trade off a kingside pawn. Very principled, makes a lot of sense. I am never taking this in my life. No, sir. No, sir. These are weaknesses now. I lose this game now. This game's over. No point in playing it. Game's over. So I ignore it and just go rook e1. He trades. Oh, he goes in c4 first. Once again, I'm not gonna go here because it's 4. So I go d6, king d6, and he trades the pair of pawns. And luckily for me, he's still far away from trade. Very, very good for me. Very good. I definitely don't. It would be really bad if he was much closer trading off these pawns, but he's not. So he moves his king over to c3. This, after king c3, I felt like I could definitely win this game. This was the biggest turning point where I feel like, okay, now I'm in. That being said, I still thought here for a while. I had about 25 minutes. 25 minutes. So still a decent amount. That's like a legendary amount of time. I really wanted to go rook e3 check, and after king b4, play rook g3, attacking the pawn, not defending the pawn. But then after king a5 and rook takes and king takes, and then let's say I move like rook g3 and b4 takes 5. I was like, I'm the only one losing this game. Like, this looks awful. And then another thing I calculated was after rook e3 check, king to b4, actually, no, that was the main thing I calculated there. Like, that's bad for me. But what I did calculate was a5. a5 first. Now, I had to think about what happens if we play. And my conclusion, well, my first thought in this position was, well, what if I play rook e3? Doesn't go king d2, then I can take on b4. But if he does go king d2, so after 4, I was considering one was just, and I thought, okay, this might be. Pawns are a lot less scary now since they're no longer holding hands. And if he goes, and if he after rook g3, if he goes push, I'm like, oh great, now I can try to guard the pawn. And I was like, this is a little bit scary with like this, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? This looks kind of scary. And then what really ended my calculation for me was after king d2 and rook g3, if c5, and then after the king moves, I was like, I'm sad. I'm kind of not happy with anything in my life. Like, that's not good. c5, b5, bad news bears. So that's why I decided I would play a5, and if b4, I would just take. That was the end of my justification for this. I thought that's why I played a5. If I don't play a5, he gets his king or his king to a5, and he my lunch, and that's not blind. So yeah, a5. He plays knight c2. I wasn't expecting him to, but it actually makes a lot of sense. And I could I could actually seriously blunder here by playing rook g1, attacking the pawn, which makes now knight e3, and suddenly my rook is hitting granite, and suddenly he can start moving his pawn. This might still be fine for black, but like this is not happy times, sad times. So that's why I played rook e2, and now this it covers the knight's movement well. I do have to be careful of tricks. I guess they're not tricks. Um, but like forking, like this rook is forking just so if my king was on 6 or, but in this case, my king's on d6, fine, and he plays b4. Yeah, I think it makes sense to just take. I did think for a little bit here, but there's not many other options. Just took on b4, and I'm very happy. And now I'm like before I thought, okay, I think I can win this game. Now I'm like, okay, I can definitely win this game now. Pawns are split. I take the pawn on g2, but it's still not so simple. Not so simple. And he's trying to mobilize on the side. So he plays king d4, trying to prepare a pawn push and use the help of the in an ideal world for him. How does he? So I know how I want to win this game by using my kingside pawns and sacrifice a knight. Well, how does he want to win the game? He wants to try to shove a pawn down through my king. So he to defend areas that the pawn needs to go with his king and knight, and force the pawn down the board, and maybe even make me sacrifice my rook for the pawn, have another pawn. That's kind of his path to victory. But in this case, I throw in this check. I actually thought I was very fancy and cool for this move because it's not super intuitive that you should give a check. But I think it actually makes a lot of sense. Firstly, if the king cannot go forward, that's great. And if he goes to, for example, now the king is no longer supporting the pawn 5. And if he moves his king back, that's even better. I'm going to go rook h3, and then now and only now threaten the. Like if we say I go rook h2 immediately, now this king is on a great spot and it can go c5 check. But instead, I throw in this check and force him to make some sort of concession, whether that be the knight's movement backwards or his king being not as well placed as it could have elsewise be. That makes sense. So that being said, I don't know if it was right because now he can reroute his knight. So one of my ideas was like 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 maybe this knight on b4 isn't actually the where the knight wants to be. So if it's not where it actually wants to move the knight else, maybe I'm actually helping him. I'm actually not 100% sure if rook throwing in rook d2 check was actually one of my main ideas was after rook d2 was that I have flexibility for rook h2 or rook a2 because both pawns are weak. Both pawns are, well, the one on h2 h3 is, and if I go to rook a2, I can play knight f5. That's just, and I was really trying to evaluate this position. And I was like, I have no idea if this is then going to rook h2. And I decided that although this does not look bad, his knight is stuck defending. His pawn is stuck. It can't. Although in this case, let's say I make a random move, he could play this move because if I take, so so actually, yeah, this is kind of tough. So actually, I'm really happy I didn't play this because it looks like he's stuck, but I'm actually one that's stuck, and he has some flexibility perhaps. Although in this case, I guess I'm not threatening it. I was gonna say I am sometimes threatening the rook check, deflecting the king away from the knight. But that's only if I want to be. Although even though I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't see. So anyways, so point is I wasn't sure actually the right move. Oh, rook d2 check, throwing this move in. Although I think it's bad. So I go rook h2 now, and he can't defend the pawn. But he does throw in this check. So right now, Like if he went knight f4 here, I could go g5. Because knight away from defending the pawn, and life is good. Yeah, life is very good. But yeah, he throws in this check. I go back with my king. I don't want to go king 6, because that's a fork. He one of my king side pawns, and the more pawns I side, the more likely it is I'm going to draw this game. So goes king e5, goes in the check. I go king c6 or king c7, I should say, and now he brings his king. So he's trying to slowly move this pawn down the board. I really wanted to make this work, just like take his pawn immediately, but this move looked too annoying. Like knight f4 coming with, and the only way for me to defend my pawn, like I was calculating rook a3 here, then takes and takes, and I was like, like yes, this is good. And then but I also thought, okay, maybe rook g3 defending my pawn. I was like, yes, this is good. And then I thought, you know what, 5. And I was like, yeah, this is good. I was like, yeah, I like this. And then he goes knight b. Another thing that's is that knight is kind of far away from checking my king. Like for him to start pushing, the beauty about the fact that his pawn, that he not pushing, like not easy. He has to like how. So I think my king does go blockading the pawn. So now pawns are equal. After all said and done, pawns are finally equal, and I am just up in exchange, and I have 2 connected passers, so probably. He goes c6, preparing to go knight a6, and potentially moving forward. And here I was never worried, because let's say he gets his ideal setup. Like his ideal setup, and like I start wasting moves. And like this. Like he's about to ruin my and promote. Like even if it's really like this, I can like check him. And like or like check him and like win the pawn. Like this is all good. So even in his ideal setup, even if I give him like 4 moves, he has to tandem. But in any case, I have enough. I can move. My rook is such a nice long range piece that he cannot do anything. So at this point, I knew winning. One, I did not give him 3 or 4 moves though, because and I want to win. So I attack the pawn. It's impossible to defend. And he gives attack, and then it rotates to defend the pawn. So I guess I said it was impossible to defend, but then he just defended it. But now look at these guys. You guys are ready to rock and roll. I pushed pawn. I pushed pawn. I moved king because it was a check. And once again, look at this. 2 diagonal squares away. I know that this knight cannot touch me for a long time, but he can go c7 check, force my king to be fork me. But this boy made the journey. He is at the promised land. So yeah, this endgame is just winning. So my pawn and king, so he wants pawn. But once again, I'm not worried about this setup because my work comes in and there two, and I sacrifice for pawn, and he resigns. He didn't make me play it out, but that was a game. I think it was really stressful while playing it because there are so many tricks in this position, and I really think maybe this endgame is not actually balanced. It's really tough to say. Back to like this position, it just feels like it has to be around balance. But I really am not sure where exactly. If he did not want to win and just wanted to draw, honestly, don't do anything ambitious. king d3, king d2, and I can never kick his knight out of d4 because I have no pawns to kick out, and like maybe like pawns block out my king well. Like I'm not sure how I'm gonna win this if he just sits there and does nothing. Um, but maybe there is a way because I think I will get my rook file at some point, but I think he'd probably be able to do it. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting game. Probably the most annoying I had to play. And I've had so many of games. Like knights are better than bishops. You heard it here. But yeah, I've lost so many of these endgames. I lost so many, so it's nice to win it. A little bit lucky, well, but we'll see. I feel like I played well. I think show what he should have done differently. Maybe here, I all fun. I think maybe C4 was bad. Like maybe he can play B4. Maybe. But once again, my rook's still in for like even here. I thought he might just after rook e4 he would go G. And I'm not sure how to win this game. Like I thought I actually now looking at it now, I remember around here he offered me a draw like a few moves before this, and he could have chosen the setup. Like if he chose the setup, I don't know how I'm going to live because like the king guards the open file. Like well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to soften up his play h4 h5. But if I play like h5 and he plays h4, it's like like what are you all doing it? Not entirely clear. Not clear. But yeah, to maybe like let's say I play f6, maybe he can go back to knight f3. And yeah, this looks pretty good for him. So I think this was what he had to do. He had to choose a solid setup where he doesn't allow my rook to infiltrate, and his knight can hop around forever. But it is what it is, and I managed to pull through this one. So I'm gonna go hit the game review. See you guys in the next one.